morning, good evening. As you know, I stay excited. But what's important to me right now, what's really on my mind as we enter this political season, I already know a lot of y'all don't have nothing to do with politics. But the voice of the people must rise and become the power of this nation. That's all I can say. And the sound have to come from us in order for it to change and be worth. I don't even know the words to say this. It's just like I can't believe this week. But so the voice of the people must rise. So tonight, as we know, I did a study on the fall of the Roman Empire. But look, this is just the intro. We're going to go out, and while we're out and looking at the intro, I need you to be texting people to say, tune in. Because tonight, you're the guest, and I need you to speak. See you in just a moment. Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious, a freedom ride where we the people gather to build ourselves, our family, our community, and our nation. For the sound of America for Progress has reached critical mass. Understanding that we must put aside our differences to focus on the greater good. This is a place of collaboration to rebuild and restore our nation. Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious. Again, I said, welcome. I hope you hit up 2 or 3 friends to tell them to tune in because we have to talk about this. So, getting back to the fall of the Roman Empire, you guys, we are self-destructing. And I did the study. We know it was 4 things that was the cause of the Roman Empire. So it was the decay of the educational system, the untrustworthiness and the falseness of the political system, the falling part of the political system, the educational system, moral decay, and I'm going to have to cheat for that 4th one. I'm going to have to cheat for moral decay and financial corruption. Okay, so I did a little further reading, and this is how we came up with that, with the topic for tonight, moral decay. Because in talking about moral decay, all of the other major causes came up talking about moral decay. So we're just going to talk a little bit about moral decay. I want anybody who's in, if you can, don't forget to press like. I'm sure you're subscribed. If the friend you invited tonight is not subscribed, please subscribe. And tonight you have to talk. I want to see some comments, okay? So, I know I use these 2 terms interchangeably sometimes, but Moments with Vivacious is truly the voice of the people. It's this YouTube channel, and this is where I come to generalize our guests or people, in our society, in our community, in our communities, and we talk together. And this is where we meet on the YouTube channel. However, in the beginning of September, I think it's August the 11th, we're going to show for a couple of Sundays, we're going to show Vivacious Speaks. Vivacious Speaks, the New American Revolution, is radio and television. And Vivacious Speaks is the catalyst that promotes voices of the people And I want to thank Nola Reeds, and I want to thank Sigrid for coming in, for being in tonight, and to participate in tonight along with whoever else is listening. Okay, so we're gonna bring alive the culture and the voice of America. That's what the whole Vivacious Speaks is about. Moments with Vivacious is a part of Vivacious Speaks, where we meet on Wednesday nights to talk. And most of the time when I have guests, um, on the show, they have something they're feeling that they would like to talk to society about. And last week, our lady, she was great. She talked about her topic, but as she also did come to learn some things, and so to hear some things, other people's thoughts, and she was very happy about it. She said it was therapy for her. It was surely therapy for me and some others that spoke of it. Um, so we're gonna talk about what does moral. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm gonna cheat on my notes, okay? So I'll put them in my lap, so I don't have to look over it all the time. So what does moral decay refer to? And it's the perceived decline, a definition from the dictionary. It's perceived decline or erosion of traditional values and ethical standards within society. And I want to say that I think the standards changed. You look at words, when you look at the BI word, before it was, when you looked it up in a dictionary and it said, and it was a female dog. And now when you look it up, it says a cantankerous woman. I was offended by that when I read it in the dictionary. There was a study done, both urban and rural, on the influence of media on social, on decrease decrease in immorality. I'm sorry, for decrease. The study showed that the influence of media, poor parenting, injustice in society, economic disparities, materialistic approach, discrimination, rule of law, and the absence of content in school curriculum were the main causes of moral decay. And that's almost, and just like I said, proven going back to the four things I found that was the cause of moral decay. So it's almost, y'all, I feel almost like our nation is self-destructing. When we look at who the people we consider leadership in this nation, it's like, oh my God, is this what they're doing? And they're ignoring the things that is just tearing us apart. They're making their negative things okay. So how do we set the temperature? How do we, first of all, define right and wrong? Because I think right and wrong has changed to whatever you think is right and wrong, however you feel about it. If you have a reason that you think that this person should die, you can kill them. There's some people that feel that way. We had an incident, a big incident in politics this weekend. It was hardly anything that was spoken about the person that died and his family, rest his soul. And I want the family to know that he was a priority to me, and I prayed for him. But we look in society almost every day. Every day when I was in working the jails, everybody who knows me as a nurse know that I did 15 years in corrections. In corrections, most of the time I work max and mental health. But I had this guy who was a murderer. He had this couple, this older couple, that the older couple that helped him out a lot in the neighborhood. So one day he went to the older couple and he asked them for something and they said no, and he killed them in their house and he was arrested. And when he came back, long story short, cutting it to the end, when he came back from court, the day he was sentenced, they gave him 20 years without probation. He was very upset because he got 20 years. I was very upset that that's all you got was 20 years. You killed those people. And it's like the thermostat on negative is almost like the feeling is gone. You know, the emotion is gone. Maybe it's because people are murdered every day. And it's like you go, hi Stephanie, thank you for joining in tonight. And it's almost like you're saying, God, what is happening? And another thing that disturbs me about the moral fiber is the disrespect for elders. I had a young girl standing up to me. She said so many curse words in 5 minutes. I said, girl, wait a minute. Do you see these gray hairs? I know it's dyed up here, but I have my hair down. But do you see these gray hairs? Do you have any respect? It's almost like, I don't know if it's the way people are raising their kids, but there's no division. There's no boundaries between authority and not only authority, but elder in the age. You know, when we were young, we respected. We respected our elders. We had better take care of our elders. And that, like I always say, those three ladies in our block, Miss Wright, Miss Riley, and Miss Morrison, we had to take care of them. We honored our father and our mother. And when I'm sitting in conversation and parents in the room with the kids and we're having a discussion and they're talking to their parents, well, she, I said, who are you talking about? And do you know, when I started reading and talking about the golden rule, I had to look it up. I had to look it up. And the golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. But when I think about people that I meet, I don't want them to treat me the way they treat themselves. Now, what they expect is one thing, but what they give out is something else. So I'm thinking and wondering, are we losing it for ourselves and each other? Is that the foundation of where we are today in this nation? And where did it start? What made some things okay? When? Do anybody have an idea of when aware and today, when I understand where we ended up today, but when did it start to deteriorate? When did we start not to care for one another? How did we become so selfish? I've been thinking on that and thinking on that. And I know materialism, when we started becoming so materialistic, when we started um, looking up to people because of the materialism they had, because of the material things they had, they wanted that. It's almost like every generation. Um, Nola Reed said a long time ago, and Nola, I think, and Nola and everybody, I think maybe, I'm thinking right now, going in my mind, I'm thinking maybe it was at the time when families began to break up. I know in our communities when they started having what they called it then welfare. I don't know what it's called now, but they started then welfare. And I don't know much about it because I was a child, and my dad never men couldn't get welfare, but my dad had a great job, and my mom had left her some of her retirement. So we never had that. But I watched the movie Claudine, and a lot of people think it happened with um, in the black community. Families begin to break up when they started getting welfare. But a lot of things, you know, um, the man couldn't be in the home. But I'm thinking about that. And because the man couldn't be in the home, don't mean he couldn't be with his kid. I don't know. That's what they say happened in our community. When families, I think that the separation of the church, when families stopped going to church, Wednesday nights Bible study, the whole family was in church on Sunday and Wednesday, and maybe was a lot of things that added up as the as the internet became along. But this was recent. I remember my first computer was when my daughter was in high school. So, um, my husband and I separated, but he was still a part of my daughter's life. He didn't divorce her, he divorced me. So, anybody out there, anybody have any idea of where this started? I think in order for us to come up with a how to fix it, we have to know how it got broke. How was it broken? And what happened with our school systems? What happened to our school systems? And the idea that our morals are formed by what we're taught as a child. Do we start repairing um, our moral society um, at the child level? But if we only did it at the child's level, then what would happen in the middle? So, a lot of times our morals are, and our boundaries, the boundaries were set at home. The way we think about things, the way we perceive things, the way we judge right and wrong. For those raising young children that may be online, do you still teach a line of right and wrong? Stephanie said, giving the children more access to the internet. I think children with more access to the internet um, definitely polluted them because there's no boundaries on the internet. They say they have um, ways that you can cut off certain things on the internet. But my sister has a baby, and Whitney cut his internet, fixes and programmed his internet to cut off at 8 o'clock. But then he found a way to turn it back on. My sister said, "What you doing on the internet?" And my little nephew had turned the internet back on. He had turned it on. He knew a way to override the boundary that the parent guide, I think that's what you call the parent guide, for immorality. And talking about schools, when did we stop um let's hold schools off. And I want to talk about this to parents raising children. Um we believe in giving our children a voice. Uh, how much voice do we give the children, and how is that and how what are the boundaries to the children have the how is that handled in a home when we give our children a voice? Nola Reese, did your parents give you a voice when you were coming up, and what's the difference, and do you give your children a voice? Can you help us with that? Stephanie, do your children have a voice in the home? There's no balance in the world on any level. Nola reads, Nola, do you have any idea of where we can return? Um, Stephanie, could you tell us about Nola Reed say there's no balance in the world on any level? No, there was no voice. Um, do you give your children a voice? Nola Reed said when she was coming up, she did what she was told to do. And I think your parent agree with that. Um, so how was that bad, and how does that compare? Do you give your children a voice? Stephanie, you give your children a voice. Could you tell us how was that different? I think you and Nola Reeds are maybe about the same age. Nola says, I give my children a voice with balance. Could you tell us about that? I just want to know about it, because so when we talk, when you talk, when we talk, we're gonna need to become the voice in the world to change the world. So when you give, where is the balance? What is the balance? Um, Sigrid says, I'm old school. If you didn't work and pay taxes, you have no voice. And I think, and this is why I'm asking for a balance, Sigrid, because I think that sometimes, and that's why I'm asking Nola Reed about the balance, sometimes it gives children another idea, I think, that you're my equal. Stephanie Horton says, yes, I agree with Nola. Well, Stephanie, can you and Nola tell us about the balance in that, and how do we how do we keep that balance, but how do we draw that line? I'm the adult and you're the child. Is that the balance that you're talking about? I had incidents with a child one day, and I said, "Don't do that. Don't go over there." And I put my hand on them to stop them from going forward. Don't you lay hands on me. That in no way was laying hands on you. And to my understanding, that wasn't laying hands on you. You were being totally defiant, going past me when I told you don't do it. But I'm not trying to pull a child out, and I'm not trying to pull parents out. I'm, I just want to know, how did it become? Some parents do parents, um, different parents do different things. I'm sure different parents do different things. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm asking is that, what is the balance? And I'm asking the balance because some parents, Stephanie and Nola, may be looking for, how do I bring a balance with this? Some parents that were older and grew up like, Sigrid said, we were old school, so we had our way. There are a lot of grandparents that are raising their children, raising their grandkids, that would like to know, how do I bring a balance to this? What is this? These children talking back, and they may be offensive to it because they don't know how to handle it, and that's why I'm asking you guys. Can you? Um, where do you bring the balance? And then in school, I never saw children fight the teacher, like, all over the internet. You didn't want the teacher to call you mama. That's number one. You didn't want your teacher to call you mama. Now before your mom could be called, she see you beat the teacher up on the internet. And now we're so, short on teachers across the nation. And as we spoke of maybe a few weeks ago, we're 22nd in the world. When we were for centuries, not centuries, decades, number one. So how do we? Anybody have any ideas? How do we bring that balance across the board that Nola said and Stephanie agreed on? How do we bring that balance? Nola Reed says, my children don't see me as equal. They know I'm the mother. I allow my children to have a voice in things they want to do with their lives. We're different, and I want them to express their feelings. I think that's very good in bringing out children's individuality. I don't have to be who my sister, my brother, but more importantly is, I don't have to be who my mama think I should be. I think that's very, good. So I think what Nola is saying is that, as far as rearing and growing up and correction, um, where does right and wrong, um, like, this is right and this is wrong, and that's for anybody. There's no right and wrong anymore. Well, I think everybody, if that's how you feel, if that's what you want to do, if that's how you want to be, then that's it. And what is good and what is evil? When I look at the, presidential election, not the election, what Stephanie is saying something, I'm sorry. It's not letting me text long sentences, but what Nola just said is that what I do. Okay, so I'll look at my phone. If you can't text long sentences, you can text me on my phone, and I'll read what you have to say from the phone. But for everybody out there who's listening, where where do we begin to redirect? I personally, my personal feelings is that I think we have to start with family. I think we have to restructure our family. I think that we need family time, children need individual time, we need family goals, and I'm sure we would allow our children to participate in their family goals, in the family goals, in setting the family goals. Goals for each person as well as goals in the family. I also, um, I also believe that we have to have activities set up for the family. Life is different from when I came up. When I came up, we all had to sit at the table. Dinner. What time was dinner? Everybody was at the dinner table in the same assigned spot every night. They were at the dinner table, and everybody ate dinner, and we talked, and we knew one another. I think when we start restructuring families, children should not be allowed to use vulgarity, vulgar words. I think that we're letting our children get way involved in sex way too early. 14-year-olds. Life is consumed with boyfriend, girlfriend, sex. It's way too young. I believe that they're involved in something that there's no way they can understand. Um, when we get a hold to what's right and what's wrong, you know, this is wrong and that is wrong. This is right. This is good to do. That's evil. Don't do that. When the adults in the community begin to set examples, but when children look up and younger people look up and the lives that older people are living is totally on and out of control, then that's what they're gonna do. You know, when parents started doing things in front of their kids and around their kids, it became the norm. And I believe that we have to begin to set a new standard again, a standard of right and wrong, a standard of good and evil. You know, when I was coming up, lie was bad. If you said lie, you couldn't say lie. And my sister and I were just talking the other day about how when the elders before they passed, especially the women elders, we were grown with children at our house, you know, helping them, but we would still never ever say curse words. When that come, I'm talking about real ones too. Ha! But when did that become all right? When the president was honorable, and politicians served us, and the voice of the people appeared to be upheld. But baby, that's one reason nobody want to hear it, because they're looking at what the people who's supposed to be leading them is doing and getting away with every day. I have a guy that's gonna come and talk on the show. He was a felon. He had a felony charge from more than almost 20 years ago or more, and might have been more than that. And he can't even get a decent job or an apartment. But now we have a person that's have 34 felony charges, and he's gonna run the nation. God, I hope what I just said never come to pass. But it's a possibility. When you see the church, the pastor's divorcing his wife for another woman. It breaks my heart when I hear children say, my dad or my mom, they're not in my life. Some even say my parents. We have more grandparents raising their grandchildren than ever. Do anybody that's listening have any solutions? I think we ought to start with the family, building the family. I think that people must become accountable for their actions. I know I might get in trouble for saying this one, but people buy cigarettes, on the side of it say caution. The product in these cigarettes could cause cancer. But they want to sue somebody because they bought the cigarettes and got cancer. And then people with products that's hurting people don't care that it hurt you, put it out there and harm you, and don't want to take responsibility for that harm. And I think that we as a people in all communities should come together and build a curriculum that would be beneficial not only to our community but to communities around, because all children don't stay in one area to go to school. But children should learn how to write again. You know, there's the AI, there's the app. You press. I enjoy writing, so I don't use it, but I've seen people use it, even in schools. They'll put a sentence in, and they write and it writes a whole paper. I think some things in the educational system should be removed and some things should be replaced, like in grade school, phonics. Critical thinking. Critical thinking, I think, should start from, because children don't have to think anymore, but adults don't either, right? So I think critical thinking should start at a young age, all the way through. And I'm with the schools that says no more phones in the classroom. We're gonna lock them up and you get them at the end of the school. at the end of the school day. You turn it in the morning, pick it up at night. What do you do in algebra class? What do you do in English class? What happened to diagraphing a sentence? Remember when we had a diagraph? Am I saying the correct word? Diagram um, the sentence, so we'll know the parts and where it go. When we had to draw number line, and you could clearly understand number lines. I can tell when we're doing math for medications. Younger nurses didn't have the math class that we had. So we're teaching math. Do anybody else have any ideas, any thoughts of how we can go to a more positive direction? It don't have to have anything to do with what I'm saying. It just have to help build a nation. Anybody have anything to say? Economic disparities. They did a study. They did a study in Atlanta to pay rent in parts of Fulton County. A person would need 3 jobs. One person would need 3 jobs to rent a home in some areas. I looked up my first home today that I paid $56,000 for. Today, that house is going for $285,000. But salaries haven't multiplied like that. And it hasn't multiplied in that neighborhood. So what do we, as the voice of America, what do we say? What do we do? I think another thing that would help is if families came together again, when grandparents and their children and grandchildren all live together. Not all the children, or maybe one of the children and the grandparents, or sharing a home, or children moving out at a later age, especially for families that can't afford it. You know, so many families these days trying to send their children away to school, and they can't afford a home. And I was looking at, we were looking at a home, purchasing a home. We were just going through, and it said you needed 20% down. So if you need 20% down on a house, a decent house, you can barely get under $50,000. For real. That's somebody with a family, right? Do anybody have any idea on how we can learn, go back to knowing good and evil and right and wrong, and treating each other the way we want to be treated? Respecting one another. Our neighborhood was truly a village. Now when we live in neighborhoods, we don't even know one another. Maybe we could step out and have just a little refreshments and invite some neighbors to meet our neighbors. Hello? Is anybody out there with any ideas? It's gonna only happen when the voice of the people rise. What are we expecting from people who's calling out leaders? Or are we gonna get together as a community and be the power that make them stand up out of their seats? And if they can't come up doing the right thing, then we'll raise somebody up to do the right thing. This is what's happening. Did my last text go through? No. If you text me on the phone, I can read it, but it did, unless you're on the phone watching it. No. So that's a problem. That's a problem because people's text is not coming through. Nola says she sees that message. Mackenzie, do you see a message from Sigrid? Nola, can you text what Sigrid said? Can you write what Sigrid said? And what influence do you think drugs have on our society today? It's like everybody is anesthetized. Did drugs have anything to do with breaking up the family in the home? I do apologize, y'all. I don't know. I don't know why the texts are not going through. I do apologize. Oh, Nola says she don't see a message. She was saying that she saw the message that said, "Did we see the message?" So I'm not sure because Stephanie said it was a problem also. But if you text me, I can read it from my phone. But I just watch so many um, people with mental health issues. Do you think the moral decay caused the mental health issues, or did the mental health issues cause moral decay? And a really touchy subject is self-esteem. And did uncommitted sex have anything to do with the moral issues of today, with the destruction of the family? When I was coming up and you were 14 and 15, it was unheard of having sex. Very few people got pregnant at 16. They had a special school. They couldn't even come to school with us. They had to go to a special school. Um, so what are we gonna do about this? it makes me sad because I think when I think of 20 years ago and I think of today, my little grandson will be 30 years old, a little over 30 years old in 20 years, over 20 years old in 10 years. What will this country be like for him? And if we do not do something as a community, as a whole, as a nation, as a people, it is Vivacious Speaks goal to be the catalyst that ignites a fire in the people of this nation. Vivacious speaks in every part of Vivacious speaks, including moments with Vivacious, to become a power. We had one conversation to say how education should be better, and we had people willing to work with it. We also, I did speak with the leader of the educational system of Vivacious Speaks of our community educational system, and we're writing that letter to those people who said that they will participate. We're writing that letter out to senates, but we just praying that whew, that come out all right. And this is not a political conversation as much as it is. It's not. This is a life situation. This show is a cry out for life in America. You know, I work with a lady and she's from another country, and she would say, if that happened, really on my continent, if that happened on my continent, and every time she said it reminded me of when I was coming up. If a child hears a teacher like that on my continent, if a child curse their mama out, they're not gonna get past one word. They wouldn't get past one word. We can't expect nobody to do it for us. People of this nation, if we're gonna survive this, the answers, the struggle, the push, the fight has to come from us. Because there's nobody up there, I've been watching, nobody up there thinking about us. None. What they want, what themselves, what they're gonna do, how they're gonna do it. So if the people of America is gonna grow to a greater future, we're gonna have to do it of ourselves. The voice of the people of America must become louder than the voice of the politics in America. Even for simple life. Even the court systems is a joke. The court system is a joke. When I think of the man running for president and a common citizen, it's a doggone shame. And y'all know that D word I want to say. But all we do is people sit down and look at it. Right now in Atlanta, they have a trial going on with a rapper, Young Thug. The judge was removed. I don't know all the charges, and I don't know how many people's murders was. I don't know all the charges, so I can't really make a comment. So they removed the judge that was on the stand, and now the attorney went to jail. One attorney went to jail for smuggling drugs. Another one went to jail for contempt. The judge has been removed. Now the new judge that was assigned 2 days ago, now they're removed. Somebody was smuggling drugs from out of the audience, just walked up there and brought it to one of the defendants. Like, this is a joke. But we have people's lives that's being snatched away for tickets. Parents for correcting their children go to jail. While we sit back watching people get off of federal offenses and destroying our nation. We must become a loud voice. We must become the catalyst that save our nation, and that is becoming the voice of this nation again. Democracy is the people ruling the nation. We must begin to shout loud, take our place, and say, heck no. And Sigrid said, parents have to stop being their children's friends and start being their parents. Sigrid, just yesterday, I had a child who's wanted to harm themselves really, really bad. So when the dad brought the child to us, the mom just was not wanting to be in the picture. So when the dad brought the child to us, I said, this child needs this help. The dad turned around because he felt obligated to the child to say, I told her I wasn't going to let y'all do that. I told her that wasn't going to happen. We can't do that. I'm like, he could lose his child, letting her manipulate. Just a few weeks ago, this 14-year-old cursing his mama out, telling him when I get you home what I'm going to do to you. And the counselors, everybody in the room saying nothing. I looked in the window like, what's going on? See, they need us old schoolers. They don't want to hear it. I heard a young girl say one day, what are we again? I'll come back to that when I can think of that word. But I opened the door. She was signaling me, coming in. The counselor, like she needed help. And I opened it. I said, what's going on in here? What's it? This is inappropriate behavior. I gave him a whole bawling out. How dare you? And then I turned to his mom. I said, how long you gonna let this boy run your life, steal your peace? How long you gonna let him make you cry? He's a child. He's 14 years old. Gave her a bawling out. So the counselor said, after you gave her that ball out, she came to life. Because guess what? When he was back there and me, I said, you think you could go to jail? I don't care nothing about going to jail. Because see, they're big and bad. Till you tell them what's going to happen to you in jail. And then when the officer came, because the mama finally got some balls, and she called the police for him threatening her life. So then, of course, he wasn't going to go to jail, but he had to think he was going to go to jail. Okay? So when the police came in and the police started telling him, I said, officer, he think he's ready for jail. So the officer said, you think you're ready for jail? And the same thing she told him, because he was a pretty boy. Curly hair, good looking skin, he was half black, half white. He was pretty. She said, "You think before midnight?" I told him, before midnight. She said, "Before you could rest, you would be somebody's beat." Yeah, I had told him the same thing. When we finished in there giving it to him, and he walked out that door, he wanted to apologize to his mom because he couldn't go home. Well, we, had to send him somewhere else, but he didn't go to jail, y'all. But that mama had finally got the ball. And that's what I'm saying. When one person raised their voice, that changed that lady's life. When I told her, "You better get it right." And that's why we meet here. And I'm going to have more of these days, Lord. I'm going to get in touch with my platform to find out why. Because every time we have a show like this, it doesn't take our comments. We need these comments because it's going to be us. Just like last week. People learned. People grew. People grew. Some people were saying, "Why you let that happen? This shouldn't happen. That person should have said that." But everybody who had something to say, I want y'all to know, last week was my most successful week because we grew so much. It wasn't one person talking. It was everybody. So we have to have that work. So I'm gonna have to check what's stopping this from working, because this is how we're gonna grow. This is how we're gonna grow. We're gonna grow by hearing what each other have to say. I just want to say I'm grateful for everybody who tuned in. Thank you, Sigrid, Nola, Stephanie. I want to thank my person, Mackenzie, who's working backstage for us. And we're going to see y'all next week. Remember, we have to be the voice that produces the catalyst, that ignites the voice, our voices, to build America. Thank you for joining Moments with